Okay, in this video, I'll be going through the end of year set 3 combined science paper 1, and I will divide the video into two parts so it is easier for you to refer to the questions that you want. So let me begin. Okay, for question 1, I'm not going to talk much about it because this is kind of like a factual question. It's either you know or you do not know, but I think even if you do not know, I think you can make a sensible guess lah. If you look at option C, it is just 10,000 meter, and B is just 100 meter. So if you think about it, our roof is about 3 point something meter tall. Normally in a building, the ceiling to floor is about 3 point something meter. So if you have 100 meter, I'm sure you have heard of a 100-meter run, right? So do you think the radius of the earth is a 100-meter run? Or do you think that it is 10,000 meters? So how many is 10,000 meter? 10,000 meter meaning that you run 100 rounds of a 100-meter run. Do you think the earth radius is that? Or if you want to convert it to a number of story, because now you know floor to ceiling is about 3-meter height. So let's say you round it up to 4-meter or even 5-meter height. So let's say 5-meter is a 2-story high, okay? So it is just 2,000 story high. So I think you can make a sensible guess from here, but I suggest you read chapter 1 of your textbook. There is a list of stuff there you need to memorize. So for example, diameter of your hair, or for example, diameter of your atom, or for example, they may ask you diameter of an wire. So you should know around which range you are talking about. Is it 50, 10, and whatsoever? Okay, so that's for question 1. For question 2, you need to know something about pendulum. So like I said, in my video, I will include some off topic, as in not off topic, some content you must know. So for pendulum, some of the factual things you need to know, meaning that you must memorize these facts. If not, you cannot even do logical deduction. Number 1 is that there's this thing called the period. So basically, period is a short form for the time taken to complete one oscillation. So later on, I'll be explaining to you what is the meaning of oscillation, from where to where is considered as oscillation. The other thing you need to know about period is that what factors affect it. So your period is basically affected by only two things. That is the length of your pendulum. So you may ask me, teacher, what does length of pendulum means? It means this string. Okay, if this string L, if L is long, then what will happen is that the period will be long as well. That means if my string length L is long, then the time taken for me to complete one oscillation will be long. So for example, 20 minutes, like that. Another thing that will affect your period is actually your gravity. So these are the only two things that will affect the period of a simple pendulum. This means what? This means that if now I ask you, if I have two pendulum, one is 10 kg, that means this pendulum bob is 10 kg, the other one is like 1 kg, and both of them has the same length. So does the mass over here affect the time taken to complete one oscillation? The answer is no. Okay, because your period of oscillation, a period of a pendulum, is only affected by the length or gravity. So the pendulum bob that is at the end, the mass of it doesn't matter whether it is big, small, heavy or light. It doesn't matter. So these are some facts that you need to know. So moving on, down here it says that you need to find the period of a pendulum, and I just explained to you that the pendulum, the period is the time taken for one oscillation. So what is an oscillation? Well, oscillation simply means that one oscillation simply means that if you start here, then you must make sure that you end here. So one oscillation means like that, and back. This is one oscillation. So this is one way of memorizing it. There is another way to count oscillation. So if you want to count from the center, it is the same. So it is the time taken. So you start the timer over here, and you need to end the timer when the pendulum bob comes back here. But this time round, you need to, let's say you swing to the left first. When you swing back, you must let it swing past and then swing back. Okay, then you will have one oscillation. So I draw it properly now. So it's like that, and then all the way swing back and comes back here. So it's like this. Okay, so this one is a bit more tricky. So this is also one oscillation. So if you look at the diagram, they are saying that if you let P swing from here and then to the other extreme and back here, the time taken is 1.2. So if you look here, this is how many of an oscillation. Oscillation consists of 1 part, 2 part, 3 part, 4 part. So actually this 1.20 is 3/4 of an oscillation. So if you want the time, because period of a pendulum is talking about one oscillation, the time taken for one oscillation. So therefore you need to turn this into 4/4 oscillation, and you should be able to find the time over here. Okay, for question 3, it is about kinematics. So before you can answer this question, you must understand this term. So those of you who can still recall what we have covered in the lesson, free fall means many things. It means that, for example, your air resistance is 0, or it could mean that your gravitational acceleration at any point is equals to 10 meter per second square downward. So this is what free fall means, and you need to have that. If not, you won't be able to answer this question. So if you have a gravitational acceleration that is fixed at 10 meter per second square, that means that this acceleration, right, will not change. So in a way, constant, because it won't change. Yeah, if you go and pick A or B, increase or decrease, you are saying that this number 10 sometimes can be 12, sometimes can be 9, sometimes can be 7. But in our case, it's not, because we are talking about free fall. If you are asking me, will there be a question whereby the acceleration here would change to other value? The answer is yes. We are going to talk about that in the next chapter called forces. Okay, for your question 4, it is on forces. We have not gone through it, so I think for 2021 you are not going to be tested on this topic. But at this point, you should know that your forces is a kind of vector. So you need to go back to your chapter 1 and find out a list that says that this are vectors, that is scalar. So if they are vectors, it means that direction matter. So if you look here, if you take this side as positive, you would have 3 Newton, 7 Newton, and minus 12 Newton. Now this word resultant simply means that the sum of vectors. So since you have 1, 2, 3 vectors, sum of vectors simply means this 3 plus 7 plus negative 12, which eventually will become this. So you can actually answer this question. Okay, question 5 is a question on forces. So you have not covered that for the 2021 batch, but inertial is being affected by mass only. Okay. Okay, for your question 6, gravitational field strength, this is actually from the self-study topic, mass, weight, density. So for this particular topic, I am not going to cover in class because it has already been covered quite extensively in your lower set, and I'm sure you can read about it. So go and read about it. There's a definition on gravitational field strength. So when we are talking about a field, we are talking about a region. So that's why CND is out. So if you think about it, gravitational field strength, okay, the letter is G. Okay, gravitational field strength is actually the G that you has been using. Many a times we take G equals to 10. So what is G? W equals to mg, right? So if you make G the subject, you will get W over m, which means what? Which means that you are talking about how much weight is produced when you have a 1 kg mass. So because of that, it is the amount of gravitational force. Gravitational force is basically another name for weight, right? That a mass experience. So that's why A is the answer. Okay, for the next question, question 7, it is on the topic of kinetic model of matter. So they are actually asking you about the force between molecules. In another word, what is the technical name of this force? Yep, intermolecular force. So basically they are asking you which state of matter, solid, liquid and gas, which state will have a greater intermolecular force. And I hope you should know that your solid will have the strongest force when you compare to gas. Now since we are on the topic of intermolecular force, how about if now I ask you about IPE? Can you go and think about it? Between the three states, solid, liquid and gas, which one has the most IPE? While you are thinking, I'm going to add in over here. So this one is intermolecular force, or the bond strength. Okay. So if you recall, what is internal potential energy is when you have two molecules, in between them we imagine that they are linked by a spring. So when the spring when the distance is near compared to when the molecules are far apart and the spring is being stretched, right? Which spring can store more energy? So I think here you should intuitively know that down here the IPE will be low because not much is stored inside. But when the molecules are far apart, actually there's a lot of internal potential energy stored inside. So in extension, then your solid will have the minimum IPE, but then your gas will have the most IPE. Okay, so you can see that there's this relationship. If the bonds or the intermolecular force is at maximum, the IPE is actually at minimum, and of course the reverse is true. Okay, so that is your question 7. For your question 8, basically it is a factual question. They are asking you which state of matter is the most difficult to compress and has a fixed volume. So very difficult to compress is when there is not much space in between the molecule. So I think here I will just do a quick revision. If you were to explain why things are compressible, how would you explain it? There are actually 2 points. So if you cannot recall, it means that you have not done your revision properly. It is in your kinematic model of matter worksheet. Go and search for it in your file. So why things are compressible? Number 1, there must be space between the molecule. If there's no space between the molecule, you can't push the two molecules nearer to each other and achieve a compression. The other thing that you must take note is that the force between the two molecules must be weak. So they need to have weak intermolecular force. For example, if I have this case whereby there is space in between them, but if this bond is super strong, they will actually keep them apart and they cannot be squeezed together. So therefore, when something you need to explain why things are compressible, you must state both reasons. So back to this question, which state has little space in between and which state has a strong intermolecular force? And I think you should know the answer is C. Okay, for your question 9, it is about heat transfer. In particular, it is about this type of heat transfer called conduction. So basically, there are many things you need to know about heat transfer, a very factual chapter. You need to memorize a lot of facts. Number one is that for conduction to happen, there must be two things: contact, and there must be this thing called a medium. Okay, medium refers to things that is in between 2 points. It can be air, it can be water, it can be solid, anything. Medium is a general term. So if you read A, it says that conduction can occur in a vacuum. What is vacuum? Vacuum means nothingness. So if conduction requires a medium and vacuum is nothingness, it means what? It means vacuum can prevent conduction. If you look at B, it says that conduction, it is transferring energy through infrared radiation. Infrared radiation is a type of radiation, so it cannot be conduction. So if you look at C, among solid, liquid, and gas, conduction happens fastest in solid. That's true because another thing you need to know about conduction is that it basically transfer energy by collision between neighboring molecule. That means if the molecule are very close to one another, the vibration can be transferred to the next one very quickly. So because of that, solid has the most closely packed arrangement. So as a result, conduction will happen the fastest in solid. Now the last one, we'll just cover it in the spirit of the revision, that conduction involves the transfer of energy through bulk movement of matter. Now what does this bulk movement of matter means? Well, it means something very, very straightforward. If let's say here I have a hot object on the floor, then the air around it is the bulk matter, right? This air basically is a bunch of matter, right? And when it gain heat from the hot object, the temperature will rise and the density will drop, and so this hot air will rise, right? Not heat rise, but hot air rises, right? And when your hot air rise, basically they are carrying away with them thermal energy. So the hot air carries the heat away. So this is the meaning of having thermal energy being transferred through the bulk movement of matter. So in a way, this description is actually for convection, and hence D would be a wrong answer. Okay, let's look at 10. In the early morning, Ali touches the surface of the car body and finds it to be cold, right? So it is by touch. So Ali is trying to check the temperature of the car by touching, right? And of course, this car body is having a metallic surface, right? So I hope by now you should know that our hand are not a very good thermometer. In fact, you should know that our hand detects hotness and coolness not by temperature, okay, but rather by the speed of heat gain or loss. So for example, if now you place your hand on your plastic tabletop and you compare that sensation when you touch a piece of metal, you'll find that they feel differently. The plastic top feels warmer and the metal feels cooler. But yet the plastic and the metal are in the same room. So for example, if I have this, the tabletop plus the metal legs, right? They should be of the same temperature because they are in the same room. But yet when you place your hand over them, right, you will find that this one give you a cold sensation and this one give you a hot sensation. The reason is when you put your warmer hand on the cooler plastic surface, you are losing heat to the plastic surface. But because plastic is a poor conductor, you are losing heat very slowly. Yeah, but if you touch a metal, you are losing heat to the metal, but this loss is going to be fast, and because of that you will feel cold. So actually that sensation of hotness and coldness really depend on how quickly heat is being conducted away. So if you look at the 4 option, first you must decide metal, is it a thermal conductor or is it a thermal insulator? So I hope you know that metal is a good thermal conductor, it is not an insulator. So you can kill off 2. Then after that you need to ask yourself, is the heat being transferred from Ali's hand to the surface, or the surface to Ali's hand, or from Ali's hand to the surface? So to answer this question, you must ask yourself which one is hot, which one is cold. And actually the question tell you that the car body early in the morning, so it has not gained heat from the sun, right? Early in the morning the sun has not come out. It is in the night. So because of that, the car body is actually at a lower temperature. And of course you are a human being, so this means that your hand is going to be at a body temperature which is maybe 36 degrees C. So obviously heat will travel from hot to cold. So this one you need to know that heat will travel from high temperature to low temperature. So as a result, you should know that the heat transfer is from the hand to the surface. So that's why B is correct. So I hope this video helped you go through some of the content. There are many of the facts that you need to know before you can talk about getting your A's and all that.